If you work with engineering or technology like I do, you probably need to keep learning and updating yourself frequently. Otherwise, you're gonna get behind. There's so many new things that you're always gonna keep learning to keep improving. And in my case, I have been a student most of my life, and I have spent countless hours studying. And having switched from a mechanical engineering job to a software developer job, I also had to learn a new trade from scratch. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing 3 tips that I learned that made my time more efficient and how I approach learning so that I could learn as fast as I could in the most efficient way possible. The number 1 tip that helped me the most was goal-oriented learning. Or in other words, you can say project-based learning, where you have a project or something that you're trying to build or to accomplish, and then you learn just as much to finish the project that you're trying to do. So you don't try to learn everything there is about a certain concept. You just learn enough so that you can finish a project. And I think especially for engineering and technology, that's a very powerful approach, because if you try to learn something, all of something at first, you're gonna waste a lot of time and there's no way you're gonna memorize everything. I remember doing my first software developer job when I was asked to put some images and some buttons on a Django website. And back then I had no idea that Django was a framework for building websites in Python. And my first intuition was to learn a textbook from cover to cover. So I spent several hours just wasting time trying to memorize all there is to Django. But that really didn't help me. I was just wasting time. Had I just sat down on my computer and tried to put those images and buttons right as I started, I would have accomplished my goal much faster. And the cool thing here is the more projects you finish, the more things you build, eventually you're going to slowly build up the knowledge of a certain technology, and eventually you're going to be very good at it. The point here is to try to build as many projects as you can, and eventually you won't help but to learn a certain thing. The problem here of trying to learn everything there is to a topic before you even start to implement it is that you're in this consuming state of mind where you're simply acquiring information passively. Instead of trying to create something new or try to build something, just passively collecting information. And there's some obvious activities that are similar, where you're just consuming stuff. For example, if you're playing video games, if you're watching movies, or if you're scrolling on social media, you're just passively consuming. But there's also some not so obvious ways where you can also consume stuff. They seem productive, but you're just passively consuming stuff. For example, if you're reading a book, if you're studying for something, if you're taking online courses, if you're not making something new, if you're not building something, those are still consuming activities. And those things you're learning are probably gonna go away much easier. You won't remember them as easily because you don't have a purpose in mind. If you're trying to build something, you're gonna learn it for a specific project, for a specific purpose, and those concepts are gonna stick because they all have purpose. You're learning something because you're trying to accomplish a certain goal. And the more projects you finish, the more and more stuff you're gonna learn, and the longer they're gonna stick in your mind. And the bonus of that is that you can also have something to show in the end. You can build something that you can show to the world, right? If you're trying to find a job later, you have a project that you built, and you can show that to your potential employer and says, look, here's something that I built, and you're gonna have a lot of benefits from that as well. All right, my second point here is to focus on a few things that you want to learn and not to spread your time on a bunch of different things that you're trying to learn and to improve. So we all have limited time, and unfortunately, we cannot learn everything there is in the world. And I made that mistake multiple times where I was trying to be very good at many different things. I was trying to be good at drawing, good at playing the piano, good at being a chess player, a good computer programmer. And we don't have enough time to be good at everything. And that would just make me feel awful because I would go on YouTube, I watch all of these amazing people being the best at a certain trade, a certain skill, and I feel awful because I was never gonna reach their level, right? And the unfortunate part is that nobody has time to learn everything. So those people, they really focus on one specific thing that they're passionate about. So nobody has the time to be the best chess player and the best tennis player and the best computer programmer in the world. Eventually, we got to choose a certain thing that you're passionate about and really focus on that. And so if you know you want to learn something, really try to specialize on a certain area and don't try to spread yourself apart too much. And in my case, it was computer programming. That's what made the most sense to me back then when I was trying to pick a certain topic. So I just decided to, focus on one specific thing. And then pretty soon I realized that even within computer science, within programming, it's also such a big field that you also have to pick a certain specialization. But at least my world was much smaller now. I didn't have to worry about competing with everyone else in the world. It was simply being a better programmer instead of having to compete with other people I was looking online. I took a different approach. I would appreciate their work. I'll see, great, you're a great piano player, you're a great tennis player. I appreciate your work. I really like it, but that's not an area that I'm competing in. I'm trying to become a computer programmer, and that made me feel much better about myself and also help me use my time more effectively because now I was dedicating all of it to a specific trade that I was trying to learn. My third and final point here is to build the habit of practicing. And I think that's pretty much common sense, where even in schools all around the world, they're going to have the students do homework. And the reason for that is that they keep them practicing every single day, even when they're not in school. That's why when you're studying for an exam, it's very good to do old exams to practice by solving problems, because the more problems you solve, the better you're going to be and the more you're going to learn. And that's why I also think that the language learning platform Duolingo is very good at what they do, because they keep people coming every single day, doing some small lessons, and that's how they really learn, by building the habit of learning and by solving problems every single day. And that goes back to the first point of doing stuff practically, because if you're solving problems, if you're doing homework, if you're solving something for an exam instead of just reading a textbook or simply watching a lesson, you're active, you're not consuming, you're actually solving a problem, and you have to actively pay attention and try to solve something from scratch. In my case, there were three things that I wanted to improve. I wanted to be better in data structures and algorithm questions. I wanted to start reading more, and I wanted to improve my German. And so I just set my goal to practice a little bit every day. So for 30 minutes in my day, I would just set the time to just sit down and do one LeetCode problem. Even if I had to look at the solutions, I would finish one LeetCode problem and build a streak. I'll also do at least one Duolingo lesson in German, and I'll also spend 10 minutes reading. And just by building those habits every single day, I could notice that I improved my German, I improved my data structures algorithms, my LeetCode skills, and also I was finishing way more books than I was before. In the beginning, it was very difficult to form that habit. It required a lot of effort and energy to just sit down and try to do a LeetCode problem and a language lesson. But eventually, after a few months, I finally built the habit after a few months of trying. And it was very interesting because I couldn't help myself but to do that. If I didn't do those things, I would feel weird. I feel like something was itching, something was wrong. And so just like, habits like brushing your teeth or like flossing, like those things are habits that you form. You can also build habits of practicing every single day. But that's pretty much all that I have for today's video. I just wanted to give you some tips on how you can learn more efficiently. Those tips help me become way more efficient and to learn faster, especially if you work with engineering or technology. And if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.